this show is founded upon Lakota Star Knowledge concepts, really old concepts. And I talk about anything on this show, and I talk about it from this perspective. And it's a very, very, very ancient perspective. And because of historical reasons, many, many people don't know what these concepts are. And I'm not saying I have any secrets or anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there were things that happened to Indian people um, in the early 1900s, in which the result was that um, a lot of our culture and language and spirituality ended up becoming tainted, so that it now it appears to be something different. So this is uh, this is something I have to state, yeah, right away. That because of that, most books are incorrect. Most textbooks have incorrect information. Yeah, and a little later in the show, I will explain to you how this happened. Okay, I'll explain to you this 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 what do you call it? Um, this experience that resulted in uh, the change of our culture and language. So, what we are believing today is not the same as our ancestors. So, this is a point I really need to emphasize. And um, and so for this for this reason, um, some of the things that I say on this show may seem unfamiliar to those who are more acquainted with, what you read in books. Yeah, there are just a handful of books that are uh, that have the ancient way, and none of them have been published within the past 10 years. Okay, none of them. Um, and the books that I just recommend about 4 or 5 books out of the countless books out there about Lakota spirituality and so forth. Um, there's just most of that is incorrect information. So um, I will explain though. Yeah, I will explain why this is the way it is. So there are, like I said, there are things that I will say that are going to contradict what most books on Lakota spirituality say. Okay, so but I will get to that later. But I just wanted to make this statement um, that this is the real thing. This is really ancient stuff. What I where I talk about, and there is no good versus evil in the ancient way. So anything that is upon this concept of good versus evil is false. It's man made because it's man who creates good versus evil. Nature does not follow that. Nature does not adhere to good versus evil. Okay? So it is how you live your life, which is the most important thing. Yeah. And it's the reason too. Yeah, like for some like people who believe in certain religions, they live a good life because they want to get to heaven. They want to get to some place, you know, in the afterlife that's the reward. Yeah. But in the ancient Lakota way, it's not like that. No, you live your life in a healthy way because you enjoy to help others. And when you need help, you ask for help. It goes both ways. Just like your lungs. Exhale and inhale. Yeah, you need to do both. So this is you live your life for the moment, to enjoy the moment, to learn. You know, sometimes we go through difficulties. These are times to learn. And any time you learn, that results in a blessing. Therefore, difficulties are not bad. They're just difficult. Yeah, but then you learn. You learn things and you become wiser. You have more knowledge and you have more peace. Those are blessings. Okay? So this is the ancient concept. There is no we don't live a good life to end up in a heaven or a paradise or anything like that. It's not anything like that. It's something really different in our way. But we're here right now. We are here on this earth, and so we should try to, live in such a way as to honor ourselves, each other, and the earth, because it all connects. Yeah, reality begins within. Most basic concept. So, however you are, that's what you're going to attract. That builds the second concept. Like attracts like. Then everything comes after that. Okay? I'll talk about this in more detail later on. But anyway, sometimes, uh, when we're living a spiritual life, this does not guarantee that everything is going to go good. See, some people have this false belief that when you only think positive, that everything will be good. And this is false. Because, number one, positive does not mean good, which means negative is not bad. The universe is created on the foundation of both positive and negative. You can't have one without the other. If you take away one, the other is going to it's going to end up in the destruction anyway. So only thinking positive, you're headed for destruction because you're gonna develop an addiction to a thought, and this could be dangerous because that's going to lead to other addictions. You'll only want to feel one emotion. You'll only want to force yourself to feel a certain thing, and this is not freedom. That's prison, personal prison. It's self-imprisoning. Yeah. So this is this concept of only focusing on the positive that doesn't work. Temporarily, it appears to, but in the end, it fails because of what I just said. And the universe is not only founded upon positive and negative, it's founded upon other things too. Because you see, there are some things that have a positive charge, but they act like they're negative. And there are things that have a negative charge, but they act like a positive. But they really are negative. But they act like a positive. And then there's other things too. So it's not just negative and positive. You see what I mean? When you think like that, you have that tendency to categorize everything into two groups. And when you do that, the tendency then is to say, which one is good? That's the one I'm going to choose. And you keep doing this over and over, thinking one is better than the other, and pretty soon that's going to apply to everything in your life. Then you're going to start saying, uh, your skin color is the best, your culture is the best, that you know what's right for everybody, and that your way is the only way. This is racism, this is ethnocentrism, this is paternalism, and it's dogma, and that's duality. Because you only see things in this or that. Good. The one you like, you give that. You give the description of good to it. So then you say, if you're not with me, then you're against me. You're my enemy. See? That's duality. Just because you don't agree with somebody, that does not mean you're an enemy. It just means you disagree. But it doesn't necessarily always mean you're an enemy. Yeah? You see what I mean? There's always going to be at least three ways to look at a situation. So when you hear a concept or you hear somebody say, well, here's the thing, this is the situation that we have. Either you're for this or you're against it, but you can't be sitting on the fence. Now, when somebody says that, that person is full of shit because that is control. That person is trying to control you. Whenever a person says to you, there's only two ways about this, you're either for it or you're against it. When somebody says that, he's trying to control you because this is not the way nature is. In nature, there's always going to be at least three options, but never two. Yeah? There's always going to be at least three. Most of the time, it's four. And there are many times when there's more than four, but never just two. Okay? So when somebody just gives you two options, this is uh, this is a way to control you. It's really a sneaky way. Yeah, it's very covert, and this is uh, this is duality. This is where a lot of problems come from in this world. They're caused by duality. Yeah. See, in when we live a natural life, let's say we live in a society where there is no duality, like our ancestors, but instead what you have is a situation where life is good and it is sometimes it's difficult. And through that difficulty, it's time to learn. Yeah? And part of that process is emotional. So you express the emotion in a constructive way, and you can do that in different ways. Help somebody, go chop wood, go take a run, go for a vigorous swim, read a book, or what. It's different for everybody. Talk to somebody, because when you're talking to a good listener, this as you're talking about the situation, you slowly are feeling better because these are ways you release the emotional energy. See, you're releasing that whatever emotion you feel in that difficulty. Then you bring your mind and you start learning. What can I learn from this? How can I make the best of this situation? You ask for help. You seek somebody to help you. We're designed to do that. That's what we're designed to do. That's why we have mouths and eyes and ears and noses and everything. Because we're designed to help one another and to ask for help when we need it. That's our way. It's a human way. Ikje wichhoch on. Yeah. So those are times when we learn, and from that difficult experience we gain knowledge and wisdom and peace. These are blessings. So that's why we don't have a a definition for difficulty that is bad, because from difficulty our love can increase. Our love for ourselves, our love for each other, our love for nature, the earth. What's bad about that? Do you see what I mean? So we don't categorize it as a bad thing. That's the ancestor way. So that's hard enough. Do you see what I mean? The, when you live like that, it's hard enough because we all go through difficulties. Now, when we as humans create duality, as I explained just a few minutes ago, we're making our lives even more difficult than they need to be. Do you see what I mean? Without duality, life is difficult enough. But it's man who's created duality. And as a result, it creates more problems. So we're creating more difficulty than we really need. It's like we're torturing ourselves. Yeah, it's like we see the path in front of us, then we throw a bunch of obstacles in front of ourselves. That's what that's what you're doing when you believe in good versus evil. When you assign positive as good and negative as bad, you're putting obstacles in your own path. Why would you do that? Be masochistic or sadistic or something, yeah? I need to have a shitty day, so I'm gonna put some obstacles in my path. Look at how silly that sounds. See, that's how silly you are when you believe in good versus evil. When you only see life as this and that, when you see everything in life in only two perspectives, this and that, good and bad, you're dualistic and you're silly because you don't see the full reality. As such, you become close minded and end up creating religions and philosophies and oh yes, we must all wear orange clothes because of this and this and this and this, and we must all cut our hair off, and we must all wear certain kind of shoes, and we must all do this. See, and that's our identity, and that's how we separate ourselves from everybody else. See, it's always this separation from other people. That's duality. There's people who belong to yoga meditational groups who think they're nurturing the earth, but they're still separating themselves from others by the way they dress, by the way they only associate with themselves. It's just this, they're doing the same thing that religions do. It's still duality. In our way, we dress normal, regular, the way we feel like it. Because for us, it's not a movement, it's a way of life. Yeah? So, this is what duality is. It's something that men create to control others because they're afraid of themselves and of others. This is how they hide their pain by oppressing others. And it ends up doing a lot of damage in this world. A lot of people are hurt. Look at all the religions where women are oppressed. Look at all these religions where they oppress people who have female minds but male bodies. They don't accept them because they don't fit this concept of just either this or that. See, it's a way to control the world. It's a way to attempt to control the earth. The earth cannot be controlled. The earth is alive, and we can receive a lot of medicine from the earth. The earth does not need us, but we need the earth. That's the ancient perspective. Yeah. So, um, typical dualistic statements are like, if you're not with me, you're against me, as I said earlier. Another dualistic statement is, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. That's duality too, because it's only giving you two options. Yeah? And remember what I said. In nature, there's always going to be at least three. At least. Okay? So, when you live in a society where there's at least three options, good, the duality concept is seen as a tool. Yeah. So when we run into something that's dualistic, then we what we do is we examine it and then we transform it into something that can work, or we neutralize it so it doesn't do any damage by adding something to it. So it's not dualistic anymore. Do you see what I mean? And then we can learn from that. So it becomes a tool, a learning tool. That's from the ancient perspective. The modern perspective that we have today is totally backwards. People are subscribing to dualistic ideas and living their whole lives based on duality. So it's like they're doing the opposite. They're being controlled by duality. Whereas in our ancient perspective, we are the ones who use duality as a learning tool. That way, there's no oppression. Do you see the difference? So in duality, all these religions are created, and it's to control society. Yeah, and whereas in our ancient way, we deal with reality. We are here, so let's let's make the best of this. Lots of good things can happen, and when something bad happens, let's learn from that. So our love increases for ourselves and each other and the earth. You see how that works? It makes more sense to me. You don't need a book. You don't need any chanting. You don't need any items. You just need you, and we need each other and nature. The chanting and all that is nice and everything, but we shouldn't depend on it because it's just part of a process. It's not the process. It's part of a process. It's not really necessary. What is necessary is the way you live your life. Your life is a ceremony. You are the sacred item. That's all that matters. Okay? So that's that's the ancient way. That's the foundation. Yeah? Learning from difficulty to enjoy blessings. Communicating in a healthy way. And also receiving communication in a healthy way. In how you interpret things. When you see something, when you smell something, when you taste something, when you touch something, when you feel something, an emotion, how do you interpret that? That's receiving communication. So communication is not just talking, it's not just doing things or thinking about things or expressing any emotion. That's just half of the definition. The other half is how do we interpret it when it's coming towards us? How good do we listen? How do how do we how do our minds interpret this information? When we eat something, how do we interpret that? You take the time to check it out. When you do that, you're you're communicating in a healthy way. That's that's receiving. Yeah. Because usually when people say the word communication, they just focus on sending out. Yeah, they don't pay attention to the how do you interpret. So it's both ways. So how we do that is important. So the key to all of this is how do you live your life? That means how are you inside of yourself? How do you do these things? In what manner do you learn from your difficulties? Yeah? In what manner do you communicate? How good do you interpret incoming communication? If you do this in a healthy way, that's really influences those around you to do it too. And as a result, your society is a very healthy society because you're connecting to yourself and to each other and to nature, to the earth. This is Mitakuye Oyasin, how everything is connected inside of you just like you are connected to everything around you. So how you nurture those connections determines the health and strength of your society. That's Mitakuye Oyasin. Again, most people today, when they look at this word Mitakuye Oyasin, they just say all my relations, and they just say uh, to all of to each other and to the animals and nature, and they only go one direction. That's just half the definition. The other half is you go within yourself. There's a universe inside of you, and it's all connected, and that's where it begins. So how you are inside of yourself determines how you are to everything around you. So to have peace, you have to have peace inside of you first. And that includes is coming to peace with your past. You have to face it, the difficulties from your past. You have to face them and learn from them. Express the emotions that come with it in a healthy way, as I explained earlier. And you will come to peace with that if you do that. You will. That's nature. Nature will help you. That's why it's good to do that in nature. Or at least have some plants in your house. Yeah? And a cat. Cats are really good healers. People don't realize that. So, this is our reality. And when you live in this way, you see more of reality. And slowly you let go of those good versus evil concepts because they hinder you. Yeah? So you start to become free. And then this is the way to live. Yeah? This is how we're designed to live. But in duality, it's always about separation, yeah, from others, and it's always they twist everything. Like for example, another dualistic statement is it's better to give than to receive. That's a dualistic statement. That's saying that those who receive are less than you, so you're better than them. Do you see what I mean? That's duality. This is not healthy. It's still oppression. Now, getting back to what I said a few minutes ago, just because you live this way, it does not mean everything is going to be good because difficulty is a part of life. This is nature. Sometimes these things happen. Sometimes it happens because of something we did or because of something somebody else did or it just came out of the blue. It doesn't matter how it came, how it arrived. What matters is that you learn from it, as I explained. When you when you learn from it, you're being responsible to yourself. You're honoring yourself. As such, you are responsible to others and you honor others. But when you just say, "Oh, it's his fault, so I'm gonna go slap him silly," so when you when you do that, you're being irresponsible. Yeah, and you're being funny, and it's not a good funny. Yeah, you're bringing oppression. You're bringing duality. You see. So that's why I said it doesn't matter where it comes from. What matters is what you're going to do with it. So this is why, when we live in this way, those of us who really understand this way, when a difficulty comes, we're not scared. We just say, "Oh, it's time to learn." It might hurt, it might make us angry, and it might scare us, and that's okay. It's just the initial reaction. That's all. Yeah? So we have to feel it and then let it go by things that I've said earlier. Yeah? Doing something in a healthy way, talking to somebody you trust who's a good listener. That energy comes out. Now it's time to learn. So we don't see it as a bad thing. But in duality, people think, well, as long as I'm good and think only positive, then everything is going to be good. And if something bad happens, we have to destroy that something. See? You see, that's duality. That's really limited thinking. That's really closed-minded thinking. It's not going to work. Yeah, it is not going to work. So instead, you look at the ancient way. It makes more sense. Yeah, but in a dualistic society, people end up going to war or fighting each other. And one of the tools that dualistic people use is to create a false argument to win others on their side. Or they might instigate an incident and then they will say, "We weren't even doing anything. We just went to Stonehenge and we started hugging the stones to receive energy from the ancients. That's all we were doing. And here the British armies came and they tear gassed us and they sent dogs on us and now we all got, dog bites on our butts and and they use mustard gas on us. And all we were doing was just trying to get energy from the ancients. And then people who are dualistic, they're going to see this in either two ways. One, they're either going to say, Well, see, you shouldn't have been doing that. That's what you get for breaking the law. Another side is going to say, "Oh, those poor people! Look at all they were just doing something peaceful, and they got a mustard gas sprayed on them, and then in some of them they got their ears cut off, and they were beaten, and you know and they say this to each other, and somebody overhears that and says, "Oh my God, did you hear about them guys at Stonehenge? They got decapitated." And the story gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until the story is completely false. That's gossip designed to make the other person look bad. Well, here's the thing, in case some of you don't know, Stonehenge is not accessible to the public. You can't go there and hug the stones because it's they've been standing there so long that when you have too much people there, it could damage the whole system. So they put a fence all around it, and you can walk around it, but not very close because they're trying to protect it. So if you climb the fence and you got several hundred people hugging the stones, this is dangerous because what if them things fall and smash the people who are who are hugging the stones? So nothing good happened from there. You see what I mean? So they broke the law. They weren't supposed to be there. Yeah, they were not supposed to be there. And as maybe it was just a few police that came, yeah, and said, "Okay, you guys need to get out of there." And if they didn't go, then they just pick them up and drag them out of there. But yet they said they used mustard gas on us, and they whipped us, and see, they made it sound worse than it really is. And then maybe two of these prisoners were sitting in jail, and they decided to beat the shit out of each other to make it look like the cops did it. That's deception. They're lying to the public when all the police did was their job. So they broke the law by jumping over the fence, and then they lied to the public by beating each other up to make it look worse. And they told more lies by saying they use mustard gas on us when that's illegal. Even the United States military cannot use mustard gas. So what makes you think the police are going to be allowed to use mustard gas? And how do you know it's mustard gas? Because you have to be some kind of a scientist to be able to identify that. Because usually people who have been attacked with mustard gas, they can't even do anything. So how can a person who has been sprayed with mustard gas say to say to people, "Oh yeah, they used mustard gas on us. It was just horrible." Usually, people who have been attacked with mustard gas, they can't even talk. They're trying to live. They're really in a bad way. That all they're trying to do is live. They can't. A lot of them can't even talk. They're suffering. That's duality. That is a form of oppression. What they're doing is they're trying to create a picture to the public so that the public will side with them and to make the authorities look like terrorists. And they will say, all we're doing, we're just praying. That's all we're doing. And look at what they did to us in America or in England, free society. But look at what happened. See? They painted a false picture to the public. They are lying. They are not telling the truth. And the number one thing is they broke the law to begin with. They weren't supposed to be inside Stonehenge. There's a fence around it, so they're not supposed to go in there. It's to protect the monument. So when these people jumped over the fence, they were threatening to damage something that's thousands of years old. So they're actually disrespecting the ancients. You see what I mean? They were actually harming something from the ancients. They could have ended up killing themselves because if those things fell, it'd smash all of them. And the police were trying to get them out of there for their own protection. So the country is trying to protect something from the ancients. Meanwhile, these peaceful, protesting, prayerful people were actually threatening to destroy it with their actions. So the police were just doing their job by trying to protect the monument. But yet these people said, no, we were just praying. And then the cops slapped us silly and beat the shit out of us and threw us in jail. And all we were doing was peacefully protesting. That's all we were doing. And look at what they did. They used mustard gas on us. If they really used mustard gas, they wouldn't be able to talk. And the other thing is, mustard gas is against the law. Official officers, military cannot use it. So it's a lie. So this is a deception. So when police come on the scene and arrest these Stonehenge prayerful protesters and drag them off to jail, and let's say that these Stonehenge people, they have their smartphones and tablets and things like that, and then let's say that they are saying, look, they're using mustard gas on us, and they start going, oh, this burns. Oh, my eyes really burn. Yeah, they use mustard gas on us, and they're whipping us, and like that. And then when they're in jail, they beat each other up. And then so when they get out of jail, they say, this is what the police did to us. They take pictures and post it on Facebook, or they make videos of themselves all bruised up and lumpy faces, and then they say that this is what the police did to them. See, they're using some techniques here of deception, and they're called fallacies. Lawyers use these all the time. And used car salesmen, missionaries, they all use these techniques. Terrorists, they use them too. Okay? One of them is called an appeal to emotion fallacy. And what you do when you use this one is, like, say, for example, missionaries. This is what they might say something like this. They will say, do you have a relative that you really love and who died recently? See, these are all ways to get you to think of somebody that you love who died just recently. And just recently, this means it's still heavy on your heart. It's still in your mind. Yeah. See, they want to tap into that to get you emotional. So you start crying. And you say, "Yeah, my father just passed on, and I love him, and I miss him so much." And then tell me about your father. They'll say, "Yeah, he was a good man. He taught me how to whatever, 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 whatever." And then as you're talking about your dead relatives that you love, you start to feel all these emotions and you start missing them, and next thing you know, you're crying. And then the missionary will say to you, "Your father has accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior. Would you do the same so that in when it's your time that you will be, so that your father will be waiting for you?" See, they're trying to get you into their religion by telling you that your dead relative accepted that religion in paradise, and that's the only way you can see your dead relative after you die is by accepting the same religion. That's how they get members into their church. That's one of the methods they use. Yeah, that is one of the methods that they use. This is appeal to emotion fallacy. So what they did was they controlled you. Yeah, they worked on you emotionally, and then they controlled you. They manipulated you to join their church. That's an appeal to emotion. Lawyers use this when, for example, when they're trying to convict somebody, they'll bring the victim on, on the witness stand, and they will get the victim to become emotional again, as if the crime is happening right now. They do this to appeal to the emotion of the jurors so that the jurors will side with the victim so that the criminal will go to prison. But what if the victim is lying? You see what I mean? They still use this to get an innocent person sent to prison. It's an appeal to emotion fallacy. So now let's look at these prayer people from England who were arrested for hugging the rocks at Stonehenge. And now they're making videos and they're saying, all we were doing was just praying. We had no weapons and we were just holding the stones to receive energy from the ancients. That's all we were doing to help save this world. And instead, the police came, they used mustard gas on us, they took us, they beat us up, and look at us. Look at our cuts and bruises. This is what the police did to us. So when people see this, see, some people might get angry and they'll say, my God, those British police are brutal. Something needs to be done about those British police officers. And my God, that country is evil, using mustard gas on its own citizens. See, they're using these pictures and videos to appeal to the emotion of the viewer so that the viewer will side with these prayer spiritual these what should we call them, modern day druids. Crazy people, there, we'll call them crazy people. No, but this is how these prayerful people, see, they're trying to present themselves as victims of horrendous police brutality. And they're using the media to do this. and they're posting this stuff on Facebook. And let's say let's say when they were being arrested at Stonehenge, let's say one of the prayerful protesters, let's say one guy says, um, as I'm making this video and they have blocked my Facebook account. How can a police officer block somebody's personal Facebook account? The only people who can do that are Facebook themselves. The FBI can't even block your Facebook account. Yeah, the FBI cannot control Facebook. Facebook is on its own. The only people who can block Facebook are Facebook themselves. So when this guy at Stonehenge is saying that the police have blocked my Facebook account, that's a lie. Or the only other way is if somebody hacks into your account and changes your password. But that's getting more difficult to do, yeah, because Facebook has its own hackers to battle outside hackers. So it's getting harder and harder to break into somebody's account. Yeah, it is getting more difficult. So when somebody is saying on the video that I'm trying to post this video to fit my Facebook account, but the cops blocked my Facebook account, that's impossible. So he's trying to get you to see how the police are harassing them, how badly the police are harassing them. That's an appeal to emotion. It's a fallacy. It's a lie. And then when they say, please share this, yeah, if when I get this video, please share this all over the world. The world needs to know about, us, that we were doing was trying to receive energy from the ancients at Stonehenge. Instead, they used mustard. The police used mustard gas on us, and they blocked our Facebook accounts, and they beat the crap out of us, and then they threw us into prison. if you use mustard gas on somebody, you probably don't have to beat them up. Yeah. and and you wouldn't have to use their Facebook either, because they're when you're a victim of a mustard gas attack, it's severe. It burns. Yeah, you burn on the inside. You're boiling on the inside. You have hard time breathing, so you can't talk. You can't do a damn thing. You're total, total, total suffering until you die. If you don't get to the hospital, you die quickly. It's like you're smothering. So you can't talk. And it's against the law for even the United States military. They cannot use mustard gas. It's against the law. So what makes you think police can use it? See, that's a lie. You have to research this stuff. See, this guy in the video, what he's showing you very, very strong images to get you emotionally involved so that you don't use your brain. Because if you use your brain, all you got to do is Google this, and you will find out that the police cannot shut your account down, your Facebook account, unless you've broken some kind of law. They have to make an appeal towards Facebook and say this. The police will then have to make an appeal towards to Facebook and say this guy did this and this and this and this and this. So can you shut his account down? And then Facebook will say yes, we will, and then Facebook will shut it down. But a cop cannot just shut it down. It's a procedure. Yeah, it takes time. It doesn't happen. You know, it doesn't just happen in an instant. So and to use mustard gas is not likely. That's not going to be done. And mustard gas has no smell. How do you know it's mustard gas? Yeah. And like I said, number one thing is that this group was in an area that they were not supposed to be in. Yeah, there. For those of you who've been to Stonehenge, you know there's a fence that goes. You can't even get close to Stonehenge. Yeah, you cannot even get close to Stonehenge. It's highly guarded because this thing could fall pretty soon. It's barely standing there. The government's trying to protect it. And if you're there and it falls, see, you're dead because these rocks are pretty damn heavy. So they're doing this for the safety of the public. And here you have these prayerful these prayer people going in there, these new agers running in there, hugging the rocks, and they actually could cause it to fall. They're endangering the monument, they're endangering their lives, and all the police were doing was trying to keep the peace. They might have used tear gas. That's standard for riots. Mustard gas? No, I don't think so. And then for a protester to say, they blocked my Facebook account, that's highly unlikely too. Because how do the police know who this guy is? They wouldn't even know, even if the police contact Facebook and say, yeah, there's some protesters here and we got to block their accounts. How do you know what their names are? They have to have a name. You see what I mean? So that's a lie too. So people like this, they try to say things to get you, the viewer, all emotionally worked up, to get you all emotionally charged up so that you will believe what he's saying. And in the process of doing that, he told you lies. He said anything that he had to get you to believe him. So he used some fallacies, and fallacies are used to deceive people. And deception is an unhealthy communication, and this violates Lakota traditional laws. You're not supposed to do this to each other. This is not the truth. This is a lie. Yeah. And then, the guy could see he's the prayerful protester. See, he's holding the camera. He could say anything he wants. So what if this guy at Stonehenge says, "See, look over there. There's a sniper standing over there, has his gun, but he moves the camera really fast, so you don't even see anything. He's just telling you over there's a sniper. This guy's gun aimed at us." Then he moves the camera away. He does it really quick, so you don't see anything. But he wants you to believe that there was a sniper there by using power of suggestion in a manipulative way. That is also deception. That's not healthy. Preachers do this all the time in this Pentecostal church. They do this all the time. They will say, as they're getting all emotionally charged, and they will say, as they're preaching in front of the people, they'll look up. They usually do this in big circus tents, yeah, the revival tents. And they'll look up to the top of the tent and they'll say, "Oh my God, I can see the sky. Oh, it's beautiful. And there's angels. I see angels. Oh my God, they're so beautiful. Oh, oh, there's Jesus. Jesus is waving, my friends. Jesus is waving. Everybody wave to Jesus. Hi, Jesus. Hi, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. Praise God. Praise God." And then they go on and on. And the people look up there, and through the power of suggestion, they begin to hallucinate. And they see it too. This is mass hallucination caused by power of suggestion, which is achieved with high charged emotions. That's manipulation. This is deception. This is a lie. So let's go back to these people at Stonehenge. Okay, these guys that were hugging the rocks at Stonehenge. Now let's say before the police arrived, let's say one guy, the guy that's holding the camera, let's say, "I hear them. I hear them. Listen, the ancients are talking through the stones. Listen." So everybody has their ear on the rocks, and then they start chanting, "Kumbaya, kumbaya." And it spreads. Yes, I hear them too. See, power of suggestion. So when the cops come on the scene, they see all these hippies holding the rocks, and they're all singing "Kumbaya, kumbaya." The cops are going, "What the feck is going on here?" Hey, shit. And so, next thing you know, yeah, now these videos are showing up on Facebook, and these hippie protesters are all beaten up, and all that time they beat themselves, they beat each other up, yeah, and and then they're saying, "Yeah, they use mustard gas on us," and believe me, if they really used mustard gas on them, they would either be dead, or they wouldn't be making that video. They wouldn't even be able to stand. It's going to take them several weeks to go through that experience. It's not something you get better from the next day. Yeah. So when these hippies are these Stonehenge hippies are standing, in their videos, and they're saying, "Yeah, they beat us up, and they use mustard gas on us, and they all we were doing was just, you know, there as in a peaceful way to honor the ancients, and because of that they did this to us, and we were channeling a message from the ancients, and yet this is what the police did to us." And they're saying this, and all crying and everything like that, because they're trying to get you on their side. They're using appeal to emotion fallacy to get you on their side. But if you do the research, you will see that mustard gas is illegal for authorities to use on anybody. Even the protest, they can't use mustard gas. They can use tear gas. That's to disperse the crowd. That's standard riot procedure. Yeah, and you will also learn that you're not supposed to go to the monument because it's ready to fall, and they're trying to protect it as long as they can. So there is a fence around it. You can't go there anymore. You can't go close to it anymore. I mean, and then you will find out that um, there was no sniper. How can you prove it? Because the guy moved his camera so fast, you can't really prove it because it's just a blur. All you see is a blur. He could say, "Oh, there's an alien standing there," and then just move the camera away. And how do you know? Because he didn't see a damn thing. He just wants you to believe it because he said it. So he's making himself as an authority. That's another fallacy called appeal to authority. So these hippie protesters at Stonehenge, they instigated the whole incident because they want attention. They have a reason why, and it's to promote themselves. This incident was caused to promote their organization, whatever they're called, to get in the media. So people will go to their website and say, "Oh, these poor Stonehenge hippies, let's send them money to help them." So they have a PayPal account set up where you can send them donations, and they're getting donations from all over the world. Next thing you know, they're driving Rolls-Royce cars and hippies, yeah, driving Rolls-Royce cars. Yeah. And anytime they make a video, they make themselves look just poor. They're wearing raggedy tie-dyed clothes, but in real life they're dressing in Armani suits and driving Rolls-Royce. You see what I mean? They're deceiving the public so that the public will send them money. That's how they're living. They did this to make themselves look like victims so that the public will side with them and send them money. They'll say to pay for legal costs as they go to court. That's what they'll say. This is manipulation. That's deception. It's it's all a lie. And when you deceive others to get people to believe an argument, and you do it in a deceptive way, you're oppressing those people, which means you are dualistic. How can you really pray effectively when you're dualistic? Because duality is oppression. Do you see what I mean? I explained to you what duality is now. It is oppression. So, how can you really pray for the good of something when really you're oppressing it? Like when people say, "Oh God, please protect me uh, from all the evil in this world and protect me from my enemies and make me strong so that I will defeat evil and all enemies." you in your prayer, you're calling people bad just because they you disagree with something, whether it's a religion or whatever. See, there's still a duality. You're asking for oppression. It's not peace. So praying in a dualistic mindset is contradictory, especially when people say, "Oh, please pray for the poor black people, pygmies, so that they will understand one day." See, that's ethnocentrism because you're saying you know what's right. "Oh God, please come into the hearts of the Indian people so that they will accept your Son, Jesus Christ, as their Lord and Savior, so that they can be set free and become enlightened like the rest of us." That's what they're really saying. That's saying Indians are dumb. It's racism, it's ethnocentrism, it's paternalism, it's dogma, it's all duality. Missionaries do this all the time. They're like spiritual terrorists. That's duality. Okay? That's all duality, what I just said concerning only looking at things in two situations, this and that. And remember, in an ancient society, it was at least three perspectives. At least. And no good versus evil. Okay? But today, most native peoples are dualistic today. How did we come from that ancient way that I explained and go into a dualistic way? I'll explain how Indians lost the ancient perspective and developed into a dualistic thinking society. Back in the late 1800s, when we were placed on reservations, they were prison camps in the beginning. And this is a situation where we couldn't leave, we were not allowed to hunt. Our knives and guns were taken from us, and we were only allowed to eat whatever the American government gave to us, which was really no good food. The quality of the food was okay when it left places like Chicago and stuff like that, but once it got to some of these train stations between there and the reservation, a lot of these handlers would sell it, and then they would buy old food and put that in there instead, and these middlemen would make a lot of money. Yeah. So what we got on the reservation was bullshit food. Yeah, it was really no good. And we ended up getting all kinds of diseases like heart diseases, hypertension, diabetes, things like that. And then at the same time, our language and ceremonies were declared illegal by the United States. So we were hit physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Soon after that, our minds became weak. And these, as I said earlier, these are the four parts of the self. So with the four parts of the self being sick, we lost our connection to our sacred center. So we started to focus on communicating away from that. And then the priests came from the various churches, and they learned our ways and said that since our ways conflict with the Bible, that our ways are evil, that they come from Satan, they come from the devil. So in our weakened states, we slowly began to accept that. Now, another thing is that there were some Lakota people that didn't want to accept that. They wanted to hang on to the traditional Lakota Star Knowledge ways. And if they revolted, they were sent to a mental hospital in Canton, South Dakota, which was set up for all reluctant Indians in America that did not want to become Christianized. They were sent there. And these church priests also committed the medicine men, medicine women, holy men, holy women. They committed all of them to these mental asylums too. This way, the people would not go to them for help, that they would come to the churches. They wanted the Indian people to only go to the priests and not their traditional healers. So they sent the healers to this mental asylum to die. And if you are radical, you were sent there to die too. Yeah. So while this is happening, the priests are saying to the Indian people, if you believe our way, we will help your children. And so, there was a very, very dire straits time. And so a lot of Indians became Christians because of that. Like I said, we were weak-minded too at that point. And those who stuck it out, there were people who refused to accept Christianity, but they went to church anyway. what they were doing was they were putting up a candy storefront. On the outside, they were acting like good little Christian Indians, but on the inside, they weren't. They were Star Knowledge people. Yeah? They did this because they didn't want to get sent to that mental asylum to die. That's sad, isn't it? But that's part of what happened back then. And it's because of these people who maintained this knowledge in secret. Thanks to them, they passed it down, to certain people like me, and we still have this knowledge. And I have this show, and I'm sharing it with you. Because this regards the sacred center. And we all have that. Yeah, this is not a Lakota thing. This is a Ikje Oyate thing. Ikje Oyate means human being. When you live this way, as I said in the beginning, you communicate as a human, not as a Lakota, not as a German or a Japanese or an African. You communicate as a human. Yeah? That's really important to know. So, that's how it was back then. Yeah? Now remember I said that the priest said to the Indians, we will help your children. So, they took the children away from the parents, sent them to boarding school hundreds of miles away, where these children were tortured to speak only English and learn the civilized Christian way. If they spoke about home, they were tortured. These schools didn't do background checks in those days. Yeah, the pay was really low, so they got really no good teachers in these schools. A lot of these teachers were sadistic. They got sexual pleasure from torturing people. And here, this is like summer holiday camp for them. And the same thing for perverts. A lot of perverts now had their pick of the litter. And they could get away with it. That's what happened. A lot of these children were murdered. They were killed. They were raped. They were molested. And there's a lot of unmarked graves near these schools. Not all these children are accounted for. So, those who made it through, what they learned was whatever they saw. Because a lot of these children never went back home. They were told by the priests that their families had died and that there was nobody there. And that broke their hearts. This is why some of these children, they were so sad they couldn't eat. And they ended up starving themselves to death. And those who made it through, like I said, they didn't really survive because they were not able to process all these emotional traumas that they experienced. They didn't know how, because the only adults that were around them were these unhealthy, abusive people, teachers, dorm matrons, cooks, janitors, priests. They were all unhealthy to them. That's all they knew. They learned how to become victims, and they learned how to become abusers to those who they considered weaker than themselves. So they didn't really survive. A lot of these children that made it through these schools, they had a lot of traumas that they didn't know how to deal with because all they saw was abuse. That's what they learned. There was no adult healthy role models to emulate. And remember I said these children were told that their families were all dead. So they didn't go back during summer holiday. They just stayed at these schools and worked. So when they left these schools, they tried to live in mainstream America. Nobody accepted them. They would say, "Ah, you're a heathen. You're a dirty Indian." So they couldn't even get jobs off the reservation. And when they went back to the reservation, to their people, they ran into more problems. Many, many times they were not even accepted by their own people because their own people were saying, "Oh, you're too white. You act like a white man." So they're caught in between. So a lot of them turn to alcohol to try to hide all of it, to try to forget everything. They turn to alcohol and then later drugs. There were some who tried to make it. They married each other because they knew each other went through the same thing. And they didn't want their children to go through what they went through. So they didn't teach them the language. They didn't teach them the culture. Those children, the children of these first generation boarding school people, those children are today's elders. When they were born, they didn't learn the language. They didn't learn Lakota Star knowledge. They never got the opportunity to. When you look at an old person on the reservation today, they're not the connection to the ancient past. No, they were born in a Christian background at a time when the reservations were strongly Christian. So this is what happened. That's a native experience that a lot of people don't realize. This is what happened all over America and Canada too. So the next generation, they are sent to boarding school too. No choice. It's a little bit better, but they're still abused. They're still getting treated really no good. And so they grow up, have children, and they don't teach their children anything. What can they teach them? They don't know anything concerning their own language. This is why today most people cannot speak their own language, and what little cultural information they know is Christianized, meaning it's dualistic, and it's not the original ancient form. Okay, so the first generation of Indian kids that were sent to boarding school, since all around them were unhealthy adults who did nothing but abuse them, they didn't receive healthy parenting. They missed things that they should have learned about life. So they're lacking emotional development. So when they grow up, and those who make it through these boarding schools and then they have children, those children are also lacking that emotional support, that emotional development, because the parents don't know how to do it. Yeah, all they knew and all they learned was abuse. All they experienced in these schools was abuse. So they have a hard time trying to be a healthy parent. So they do the best that they can. But the children still are not receiving the proper emotional development, the experiences that healthy children should receive from healthy parents. They're still missing that. And so when that second generation grows up, they know even less concerning healthy parenting. And so their children receive even less. And every time this happens, the next generation becomes more dualistic than the previous one. So let me try to say that again. The first generation boarding school kids, they didn't receive proper parenting skills. So when they have children, their children are not receiving healthy training that they should be receiving. They're receiving even less than their parents. Now, that second generation, when they grow up, see, they know even less. So when they have children, those children are are receiving even less, and it gets worse with each generation, which also means that the less healthy emotional development they receive, the more dualistic they become. So with each generation is more becoming emotionally underdeveloped, they're also becoming more dualistic. So today, it's a huge mess on the reservation. We're incredibly, as a whole, we're incredibly underdeveloped emotionally, and we are incredibly dualistic. We're quick to attack each other. We're quick to pull each other down. We're just like the rest of the civilized, dualistic world. Notice I didn't say white man, because this is all over the world. It's not just among white countries. It's all over the world. Wherever there is a dualistic ideology, where one gender is considered less than and property of the other gender, you're going to have incredibly underdeveloped emotional people, which equals incredibly dualistic people. And that is unhealthy. So that started by the time of the late 1800s on the reservation.